Hi, it's Car and today we're filming my March wrap-up. So, I don't even know how I'm going to film a thumbnail because I've got too many things here. We'll sort that out later. I am pre-filming a lot of videos today, so I'm in this same average get-up for quite a few videos. So, I'm sure you don't even care, but just letting you know. So there were two things kind of going on in I guess really only one going on in March. I was participating in the Hamilthon, but only low-key. I didn't fit my whole TBR to it. I just completed one section of the Hamilthon, which was 5 books. So as I get to those books, I'll let you know what challenge they were for. The first book was not for that. This is, the other thing I guess is the BookTube SFF Awards. I'm reading books for the BookTube SFF Awards, and I read quite a few of those this month as well. So, the first book I read in the month was Monstrous Volume 3, which is called Haven by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. This is it here. It's beautiful. The art style in these is just gorgeous. The art is stunning. This is a dark graphic novel series. The plot's really hard to describe, but basically we follow our main character, Micah, who has this monster demon thing living inside her. It's a lot more complicated than that, though. There's a lot of internal politics and complicated things going on, but yeah. I gave this one 4 stars. I feel like I always just find that the plot of these is a little hard for me to follow and jumps around everywhere, and I'm learning components of the world, but I'm not really sure how they fit together. So it was a 4 stars. It was a good time, but I don't absolutely adore this series as much as I wish I did. I should say I read 18 things, which is really impressive, and 11 of those got ticked off my physical TBR, so positives. That was a BookTube SFF Award pick, as is this next one, which is Aquacorn Cove by Katie O'Neill. This is the second Katie O'Neill graphic novel I've read. I've read Tea Dragon Society. She writes these really cutesy little graphic novels that tell stories about inclusivity, or this one's about the environment. And the art style, again, is absolutely stunning. I just love her way of drawing. Let's see if I can find a full page picture. Are there any? I don't remember. But anyway, this is an example. They're very bright and colourful with, they don't have black line outlines, which I really like. This I thought was really cute and sweet, but maybe a tad preachy. I don't know. It was really sweet. It was about not overfishing and keeping the environment in balance and things like that. I gave this one a 3.75. Then we have a beast of a novel, which was for the Hamilthon. This completed the challenge of Wait For It, which was a book you've been waiting to read, obviously. I completed the Aaron Burr track, by the way, or one of the ways to get to Aaron Burr. And for this, I read The Prior of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is a standalone fantasy. Everyone's been talking about it. I read it at the start of the month. And this is a beast. It's huge. I've also worn out some of the embellishment, the blue embossing on the cover, because I have sweaty hands when I read, apparently. I do have a full reading vlog up for this if you want to check out. I don't know how entertaining it is, but it exists and it's on my channel. I read this in 4 or 5 days, I think, so pretty quickly, considering how big it is. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 5 stars from memory. Yes, it was my first 5-star of the month, though there were a lot more, which is really nice, because I feel like I only had a couple of 5 stars so far this year before March, and then I rated let's count. I rated 5 things 5 stars in March, which is really exciting. So this has, the basic premise of this is we follow quite a few characters, but Ede is perhaps maybe the biggest one, and she's handmaiden to Queen Sabrin, who is the ruler of this one particular area. And it's kind of like the east and the west. She's in the west, and the east is kind of like medieval dragons versus like European dragons versus Asian dragons in the east. And they're both considered dragons, and there's a lot of politics around them, but they're very different and they're kind of on opposing sides. The politics is complicated. The plot is complicated. I thought the action was really good and was held up throughout the whole of this, which I was really impressed with. I was a bit concerned there'd be some huge laggy points. There's a female-female romance between Eden and Sabrin, which I really enjoyed. And there are a few faults that I had, but mainly around, which are more things that didn't bother me, but I could feel could bother other people. And part of that was kind of, there was a bit of a passive voice in the storytelling. And what was the other thing? I can't even remember. I have full reviews for everything I've read on Goodreads. So I will link those down below as well. So keep an eye out for that. I rated Priory of the Orange Tree 5 stars. Then I read another graphic novel, and that is The Steel Prince, which is Volume 1 of Shades of Magic by V.E. Schwab, and illustrated by Olimpieri Angelini and Steen. This is the prequel graphic novel series, comic series, from the Dark Shade of Magic trilogy following Rise Dad. And this was interesting. I thought the art style was real cool. Let me kind of find one bit where we show the magic at work. I feel like there was a full page one when he first rocks up to the city. The way the magic is shown, I think, is my favorite part. It's pretty dark though, so it's kind of hard to follow along with what's going on from time to time. And it perhaps isn't my favoritist story, but it's real cool. Like, look at this. That's so cool. The art style's real awesome. I rated this 4 stars. I don't think it's as good as the novels, but I'm intrigued and I'm interested to continue with this series. I did actually buy this rather than get it out from the library because I am V. Schwab trash, and I will continue collecting these probably. Then I read the next section in my read of City of Bones, so I'm now 3/4 of the way through this. If you saw my February wrap up, I'm reading a quarter of Cassandra Clare's books each month and annotating them. So I have a quarter left, which I'll be finishing in April, and you can see early May, I think I have scheduled to film and upload a flick through of my annotation. So keep an eye out for that. It's City of Bones, that's all I have to say. Then we have The Right 3 by Blue Balliet, and illustrated by Brett Hellquist. This is the second book in the Chasing Vermeer series, which is a book I read when I was a kid. It described as a Da Vinci Code for tweens, correct. I rated this one, I'm looking at my ratings over here if you couldn't tell, a 3.5. I really enjoyed it. It is middle grade, it's easy to fly through, it has a lot of illustrations and things, obviously, Brett Hellquist. I loved Chasing Vermeer when I read it as a kid, so I was really excited to pick this up and read it. This is an ex-library copy, so it is mine. I just haven't like taken the packaging off it. And I do really want to pick up the next book in the series because I do really enjoy them. They're fun middle grade. I like the kind of, all of the characters are a little bit, they're really dealing with a lot of issues of fitting in at school and making connections to each other. Coda, who is one of the 3 characters, probably the least POV character in this one, is probably autistic. Hello, Cat. Hello, Bellatrix. He keeps these little shapes in his pocket at all times that he plays with. They're called pentominoes. And I feel like that reminded me very much of an autistic or like Asperger's-y ASM, or ASD. What is it? ASD? autism spectrum trait. And then Tommy, I think his name is, who's one of his other friends, is very kind of, he doesn't know how to balance their friendships and things. It's a lot of like very realistic childhood things of like 10 to 11-year-olds, I feel like. So I really appreciated that. The mysteries are fun. They're not super complicated because obviously they're designed for kids, but it is super fun. Then I read A Million Worlds with You by Claudia Gray, which is the third and final book in the Firebird trilogy. I read the second one last month, and finally got to this one. I was listening to these on audiobook, which I would recommend. I'm finding that this older school first person narration YA works better for me on audio. I connect better with the characters and I don't find it as cheesy. This one obviously upped the ante from book 2 and I really appreciated that. There's a lot going on. I flew through this audiobook pretty quickly and I gave it 3.5 stars. This isn't like my favorite series of all time or anything, but they're not awful. They're entertaining, the romance is sweet, and it was just a good time overall. A good time. I'm glad to have finally finished this series because the covers are gorgeous, and now that I can actually like put them on my shelf. Then I read All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is the first book in the Murderbot Diaries series of novellas. I listened to this on audiobook and I loved this. This was so good. Murderbot's hilarious and I totally recommend, if you're into sci-fi at all, you should check these out. They're so good. No, not this one, the second one, so I'll talk about that in a second. I rated All Systems Red 4 stars. We essentially followed this, like they call them constructs. So they're like part clone, part robot, like AI, and they kind of blend those two components. So they're not really human, they're more AI, but they have some human features. And he's like a little bit more human than most. He's hacked, he's like, they call it a governor module, which is what controls everything that they do, because obviously they're like they're considered a thing, not a human. They're an item to like sold and hired. And he hacked his governor module, so he's now in control of himself, and he is hilarious. He's got the best voice. It's just so fun. So I rated, this one 4 stars, and I did read more of them this month, so I'll talk about more of them later. Then we have a swathe of 5-star books that I read. The next 3 books I read all 5 stars. The first one of these is The Baron the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, which is the first book in the Winter of the Witch trilogy? Winter Night trilogy? Something like that. This is a medieval Russian story that looks at kind of the intersection between the old Russian myths and religion, I guess, compared to the modern Catholicism. And I loved this. I thought it was pretty slow. It is really character driven. It's not really a plot driven story. It's very character focused, but I had a great time reading it. I really enjoyed it and I gave it 5 stars. You can check out my full review. I also have a reading vlog for this one, and I'll try and link both of those down below. This one was for the Hamilton Challenge of the election of 1800, which was to read a book set in the past. I'm pretty sure, or in a different time period. I absolutely adored this, and I bought the second one to read soon, straight away after I read this. Then my next 5-star read, which was also for the Hamilton, was The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This was for the challenge, Your Obedient Servant, which was to read a book with multiple POVs. This obviously follows a crew of a ship in space doing their thing. It's a bit slice of lifey. This to me read like a serial TV show, so kind of like a procedural serial, procedural, is that what they're called? Like a crime drama, where each episode has like a problem and you solve the problem and you learn some things about the characters along the way, but then next episode is another problem. That's kind of how this felt. There's lots of big chapters and they all kind of deal with their own little plot point and then we move on to the next one. So there's not a big arcing plot so much in this. It's much more character driven, but there is a plot and I really loved this. Again, 5 stars, absolutely adored it. Can't wait to keep reading this series. And the other 5 stars in this trio was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is Taylor Jenkins Reid's new release that is following this band, Daisy Jones and the Six, and it's kind of like an oral history written down like in interview format of their rise to fame and then their collapse. It's very Fleetwood Mac inspired. I've heard there's going to be a TV show on like Hulu or something. I am so pumped. This was so good. Oh, I already am trying to make Jesse read it. I don't know if he ever will, but I want him to so bad. I adored this. It was so fucking good. This took me like a day and a half to read. I powered through it. Obviously 5 stars. Then I listened to another audiobook and this is Graceling by Kristen Kishore. This is the first book in a series or a trilogy of companion novels by Kristen Kishore. And we follow, what's her name? Katza, who has the grace of killing. So graces are like special powers, I guess, that these people are bestowed. It's something they're really, really good at, and hers is killing. And this is really a fantasy romance. She's like trying to defeat an evil king and stuff. There's lots of stuff going on, but really it's a romance at heart. I did find it a little hard to get into because I did not realize it was so romance heavy, but by the end I was really invested. I liked it. I didn't love it, so I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read Artificial Condition, which is the second Murderbot diaries. I gave this one also... No, I gave this one 4.25 stars. This was probably my favourite one so far. This one was for the BookTube SFF Award shortlist for like short work. I loved this one more than the first one. I just thought the characters and everything were so good. And the plot was amazing. Also listened to this on audiobook. Then I read Jade City by Fonda Lee, which was my final, I think. Oh, Daisy Jones and the Six. Sorry, back there filled the Hamilton challenge for Alexander Hamilton, which is a book with a person's name in the title. And this is my 5th final Hamilton read. And this was for Who Tells Your Story, which is for like who lives, who dies, who tells your story, and was for a book from a marginalized author. So obviously I'm pretty sure Fonda Lee is Chinese, though I keep messing this up. She could be Japanese. I thought it was she was Chinese, but now I don't know. Yes, Chinese, confirmed. Jade City is a like Hong Kong, like very Chinese, very martial artsy, very Godfathery story following these 2 rival clans and their big like Godfather-esque battle. It's amazing. I gave this 4.25, yes. I had some trouble engaging with it, particularly because I didn't like any of the... I didn't have any characters I rooted for. I thought they were all interesting, but until like 2/3 of the way through, I wasn't really rooting for any of them. My favourites are Shay and Wen, and I believe they have a much bigger focus in book 2, so I'm excited to read that. It comes out soon. But it took me a while to get invested, which I think was this book's biggest flaw, but I really enjoyed it overall. It was a fun time. Again, I have a reading vlog for this, and I have a full review up on Goodreads. Then I read Rogue Protocol, which is the 3rd Murderbot Diaries book by Martha Wells. This one I gave a 3.5 stars. It was my least favourite so far, I think mainly because it felt like it was only part of a plot. I don't know whether it's going to lead directly into the 4th installment. I am excited to read the 4th installment, so we'll confirm if the 4th installment completes that story, but it is the final installment, so hopefully it will. But yeah, this one just lacked in something a little. I still enjoyed it. I still had a good time, but the plot wasn't quite as solid. Then I read Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence, which is the final book in the Book of the Ancestor trilogy. And I unfortunately didn't love this as much as I wanted to. I gave it a 4 stars, but I had some problems with it. And I think most of those problems come with because it's so short. Oh my god, it's tiny. This is like a big epic fantasy series, and this is like less than 350 pages. My main problems are things that you would never know from the first book, because they're primarily about the time gaps between books. There's big time gaps between each of the books in this series, and although you could argue it's to skip over things that are irrelevant, in fact it makes things very confusing. There were some things that happened between the last book and this book that I was like, what happened? I was just confused. And when I read Grey Sister, I was confused as well, but only for the first like third or quarter, and then I kind of picked up and everything. This, I was still confused at the end. I just rolled with it. I enjoyed myself, but I was confused. And then I thought the ending was a tiny bit convenient. Nona just happened to be everywhere, solving everyone's problems. And I thought that was a little bit easy, and no one was really doing their own work. So that kind of bothered me as well. I did enjoy my time reading it. It was a good reading experience, but yeah, I don't think it was the strongest installment by far. I'm pretty sure this is one of those series where book 1 is amazing. Book 2, like book 1 was one of my favorite books of the year. Book 2 was good, like really good, but not absolutely amazing. And book 3 was alright, like good, but nothing special. I'm sorry. It definitely did have a lot of big, like, twists and turns by way of the series, like lots of big reveals, which I appreciated, and figuring out how everything fitted together, but it was not my favorite. I still gave it 4 stars. Like, I had a good time, but it was not my favorite. Then another 4-star read, pretty much more positive one, and that's The Adventure Zone Here There Be Goblins by the McElroy brothers. Their dad, which is Clint, I think, and Kerry Pierce did the illustrations for this. This was also for the BookTube SFF Awards, which is the final of the 3 graphic novels presented for the list. And this is a graphic novelization of the Adventure Zone podcast by the McElroy brothers. McElroy? I don't know. And this was fun. It was very entertaining. It's obviously, the podcast is them playing Dungeons and Dragons. So very entertaining. I thought it was a great time. There's lots of different plot points going on. And my favorite characters are Magnus the human. Actually, I like all 3 of them. So this is Magnus, Taco, and Merle. Taco. The Magnus, I think, is my fave because he's just really sweet. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I give it 4 stars. 2 more. We're getting there. I'm like dying. My throat's really dry. I need to grab some water. We have Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the first in the 6th World series, and this is like a dystopian that in which there was this big like cataclysmic event. They call it the Big Water. It was like a giant flood that everything except mountains were put underwater, and we're in this Navajo reservation, and the old gods of the Native American people have come back. And we follow Maggie, who is one of these people. She's Dinatar, is like the area, which was previously Navajo. And she has these powers that have been bestowed upon her by the gods, kind of thing. She's defeating monsters. She's a monster slayer. This is a fun time. It's very like urban fantasy, but in a post-apocalyptic setting, which I really liked. I thought the romance was complicated and messy, but I loved it. And my biggest problem with this was something that I don't think everyone will find a problem. I think some people will really like it, but I found that Maggie's suffering PTSD for sure, and sometimes she would make decisions and jump to conclusions that I was like, oh, that's so obvious, that's just your PTSD talking. Like, you're just this is coming from a place of trauma, you're not thinking this through. So I just had some times where I was like yelling at her, like, oh my god, like that's not what's happening, that's just your PTSD. But like it is really realistic of PTSD, so things that people will like that, I think. The only other thing I had that was negative about this was that flashbacks were also, everything was told in first person present tense, even the flashbacks, which kind of bothered me because I couldn't figure out what was a flashback and what wasn't, because it was all present tense. So that was my only problem. Otherwise, I enjoyed this. I thought it was a good time. It's pretty short. I enjoyed it. 4 stars. And then my final book of the month, which I finished late last night and is also 5 stars. I slammed through it over the weekend. I enjoyed myself so much. And that is Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the first book in a new series, the Founders Trilogy. Oh my god, we follow Sansia, who is a thief. And this world is kind of like a merchant Venice, kind of all these merchant houses running the show. And in this magic system, you write on things to kind of convince the thing that it's something different. And like convince is the right word, because it's a lot of telling it a thing and making it believe the thing, which is weird because it's an inanimate object, but it totally makes sense in this world. And Sansia is a really great thief because she has an extra little ability where if she touches things, she can feel out their history. And so she can like feel for handholds just by touching a wall kind of thing. It really ties in. It's awesome. The magic system is really interesting, mainly because it's still being developed as the story unfolds. This city is kind of like in a arms race to come up with new ways. So they kind of know that if you write these symbols on things, it can change how they are, but they don't know all the symbols. They don't know all the way the symbols can be put together. There's not really a limit. It's a very like scientific system, so if it's all going to meet the rules, and they're constantly trying to find ways to bend the rules and meet the rules. And so the magic system is always growing. It's not like we can do this set of things and other things we can't. It's we know we can do these things, we know these are kind of the rules we're playing in, what else can we do? And that's still growing, and that's really fascinating. I adored this with my whole soul and being. I loved it. I can't wait to read the second one, which comes out like not till next year probably. This was 500 pages and I literally devoured it in like 2 days. I just loved it so much. It was so good. Like I can't describe to you how good this is. Like the characters were all amazing, even the antagonists, everyone was so interesting. The magic system was so interesting. The plot was so fast paced. I was like absorbed in it the whole time from start to finish, and I just, it's so good. Read it. Oh my god, 5 stars. So those are all the books that I read in the month of March. I don't know how coherent this was. We're just rolling with it. Thank you for watching. Obviously, anything I've talked about today, Goodreads links for my reviews will be down below. I'll try and also remember to link my reading vlogs for ones that had reading vlogs. And otherwise, I will see you soon with another video. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, comment down below if you've read any of these and chat with me about them because I'm excited. Especially Foundry Side. Can you see I'm like dying over Foundry Side? Otherwise, I'll see you soon with another video. Bye!